Isn't it refreshing when free really means free? Whether you're a WagerTalk customer, a Sports Memo customer, a fan of our videos, or even if you're not a customer at all, everyone can get this week's edition of Gold Sheet for free. Enjoy write-ups and stat logs on every college football game this week to see the new and improved Gold Sheet layout for this season. To download, log into Gold Sheet's website using username free@goldsheet.com and the password free. No coupon, phone number, or email address is required. It's that simple. Come see why Gold Sheet has been this country's premier football betting newsletter for over 6 decades.
Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Carmine Bianco. This is Stoppage Time. Thursdays are back, and we have an EPL edition. We did one on a Tuesday, and this is our Thursday one. We're going to cover some games in the EPL this weekend. We're going to look at Liverpool and Everton in the Merseyside Derby. We're going to look at Chelsea and West Ham, and of course, the featured game on Sunday, Man United and Arsenal, unbeaten Arsenal, 5-0 after a late winner yesterday. We're going to bring the guys in from WagerTalk.com. It's Nick Borrman and Kevin Dolan. And from Sports Memo, it's Pavlos, Laguretos. Guys, Wednesday results. Erling Haaland, 3 more goals. He's got 9. I'm feeling really good about my future bets on him to score. I think it was 25 plus goals and to win the Golden Boot there. So it's looking good. Of course, Liverpool youngsters feature in coming back and winning that one late against Newcastle. I think it was an 89th or 98th minute goal that got them the win there. And of course, Arsenal get one late, a second time in a row. They did against Fulham. They do it against Aston Villa, remain unbeaten at 5-0. Any other surprises for you guys?
Chelsea.
I would
Go ahead, maybe.
Chelsea.
Chelsea was a surprise, kind of.
Tottenham, West Ham.
Tottenham. Yeah, maybe. That was kind of a surprise, yeah.
And the overreaction after losing 9-0 at Liverpool. A lot of people thought Wolves would get a result at Bournemouth. They didn't. They only got a point. Bournemouth get a big and a clean sheet to boot, guys. A clean sheet to boot. So, not a lot of surprises, but I think that was one. I think a lot of people were looking at Wolves. I thought it was the line. There was a bit of an overreaction to it. And then the Liverpool one, they still have not gotten into their form yet. They get the win, and I guess that's all that matters. But Newcastle I think maybe credit to Newcastle. Newcastle are looking good right now, thus far into the season, and are looking to compete for a top 6 spot. All right, guys. Like I said, we're going to cover 3 games on the card today, and let's get right to it. Let's get the boys in action. We're going to look at the Everton-Liverpool game. Everton, plus 700 at home. The draw is plus 400. Liverpool, minus 175. And before I throw it to Nick, I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to say, listen, it's been a tough start to the year for Frank Lampard and the boys. They're still looking for their first win. A couple bad losses to start the season, 3 straight draws. Maybe that gives them a little bit of hope. But they've been up against it since the start. Obviously, did not replace Richarlison, who went to Spurs during the offseason, and then start the season without Calvert-Lewin, who was out 6 weeks with a knee injury. So it's tough, at least scoring-wise for this team. But they have looked good of late. Their last 3 games have looked good. And these derbies, they always bring it in these derbies. You look at Liverpool as well too, and if there's one sign of hope for for Everton in this game, is I'm going to say that it's the weekend prior to Champions League. And if you haven't downloaded my EPL guide on my page, go there. I do have a stat on Premier League teams last year prior to a Champions League game, and their records, especially their handicap records, weren't the greatest. Liverpool has a trip to Napoli next week, and trust me, Klopp is well aware of how important that trip to Napoli is for this team. Their last 2 trips over the last 3 years, they've gone to Napoli and come away with no goals, no points, and 2 losses. So with that said, I think there's some rotation in the Liverpool lineup, but I think we see some goals in this one. The total's at 3. Nick, I'm taking over 3. Where are you going?
I hate to say the opposite, but I think we might see an under here. And the reason is well, first of all, let me start off with how the dogs are doing in the Premier League, and because that's really what I've been focusing on right now is taking dogs on the Asian handicap, because so far this year they've been winning at a tune of 67%, which of course will not last for the season, but while it's going, and 30 dogs have covered in 49 matches, 15 favorites have covered. The other 4 were either pick prices to go off or ended in a push. So yesterday, or the midweek slate games this week, 9 games, only 1 favorite won, and that was Man City. So saying that makes me want to look at Everton, and I did look at Everton, but I can't back them. They look anemic. They don't look. It's just not a team I want to get behind. And Liverpool is, obviously they had a rough start to the season. They haven't looked the greatest. That being said, XG is still there for them, and that will turn around over the course of time, and they're clearly the better team, and I just don't want to get in front of them. So looking at the total, Carm, how I think I might see this play out is the Toffees, the only chance they're going to get a result here is defensively. So I think that's how they're going to set up. Lampard knows that this is not a winnable game for them, very unlikely anyway. So what's he got to do to try to secure something? Sit back, park the bus, play some defense, hope for a 1-1 result maybe. And on that same token, Liverpool, after that slow start, they were winless in their first 3 games. They've turned it on, obviously, as of late with 2 wins, but their XGA numbers are much better. They allowed just 0.64 to Newcastle, even though they needed a late-minute winner there. Their defense was still solid, and they allowed just 0.18 to Bournemouth, and they allowed 1.64 average over those first 3 games. So the defense has started to turn around. And, for as I said, as Everton has looked, I can't believe that they're going to have many chances in this game. Historically, 9 of the last 12 have stayed at 3 goals or under, so only 3 matches in the last 12 have finished over 3 goals. So maybe it's a push, but I just don't see 4 goals coming here. So I think if this was at like 2 3/4, I would probably agree with you, Carm, or at least not look at the under as much. But I think on 3, I like that safety net of having a push if it's a 3-0 or 2-1 type of thing. So under 3 is how I'm thinking.
All right, Nick Borrman, WagerTalk.com. We got our first disagreement of the show, but that's a good thing, because if we all agree on one side or one total, that our producer Dan and Joe are just going to bet the opposite of what we end up on. But with that said, Pavlos, listen, last year Liverpool win both ends of the derby, but the year prior Everton took 4 of 6 points against this Liverpool team. When you see these derbies, and we saw a London derby yesterday, where Tottenham went in favored, it ends up in a 1-1 draw. It's a spirited affair, and this is one of the reasons why I'm looking at the total here. Is it spirited enough that you can take Everton, Pavlos?
In fact, yes. I do like Everton plus 1.5 goal. I know some people might think I'm crazy. The price is at -120, -115, somewhere around that. When you look historically in matches between the 2 sides, and again, you have to take these results with a grain of salt, but I usually take these results into consideration because, keep in mind, this is a city derby between Liverpool and Everton. In the last 10 matches in this venue, Liverpool have won just twice, and the other 8 were draws. So no matter what the circumstances are in any given season, if one team is good, the other team is struggling, it doesn't really matter. There is usually very few easy Liverpool wins in this venue. And again, Everton used to be much, much better back in the day. Now they're struggling a lot, but they seem to be doing something right this season, and that's their defense. Of course, they brought a lot of players to shape up the defense with Tarkowski and Cody from Wolves, who, by the way, they were both captains in their club. So they're building from the defense up. So I think their defense has been doing a solid job so far in the season. I mean, they only conceded a couple of goals against Aston Villa, and in the other matches they only conceded 1 goal max. So I think they can play good defense against Liverpool. Of course, Liverpool are not to be trusted right now, at least in my perspective. Yes, they blasted Bournemouth by 9-0, but then they struggled a lot to beat Newcastle, who, by the way, Newcastle had only a couple of shots on target. They took the lead. They could have scored another one there, but Liverpool struggled really, really hard to beat Newcastle at home. Now, again, I know Everton have looked really, mediocre at best so far in the season, but I think I actually wouldn't be surprised if we saw a draw here at plus 400, but I think Everton plus 1.5 at minus 120 covers a lot of scenarios. I mean, Liverpool wouldn't say no to maybe a 1-0 win, a 2-1 win, something like that, low-scoring match. They can get the 3 points. They can stay relevant in the title chase. I just don't think they can blast Everton out of the building here, so I like Everton plus 1.5 here.
All right, Pavlos Laguretos of Sports Memo. Kev, we're going to give you the final thought on this. Now, Everton will have their new signee. For some reason, they couldn't get him into the lineup or signed in time for their game in midweek, but Neil Mape should help out, at least offensively, for this team. Thoughts? Is that enough for you to take them against Liverpool? I'm going to guess not.
No, it's not, to be honest, because we all know how much he struggled at Brighton to put it in the back of the net. So I'm not sure how much of an upgrade that is. I thought Nick's breakdown was first class. I salute him. I tip my cap because I'm in full agreement. Not so much on the total, but if you follow the XG and obviously season-long trends, we've talked about this so often, game to game. But there will be a turning point for Liverpool. They're just too good offensively. They're putting up too good of numbers. We turn over to Everton. I'm a big fan of Frank's, obviously, but they just haven't impressed me. They left it very late to grab that draw against Forest 2 weeks ago. I thought they were extremely fortunate as well to come out with that draw against Brentford at the weekend as well. Nothing to do with the fact that it was my 5% play either. I'm always impartial. But, Brentford crashed the ball off the bar 3 different times. I think I'm on my 5th TV of the season by now. Absolutely heartbreaking watching that one. And, got another draw against the Leeds team. I really don't rate all that highly this season. On Tuesday. So, Frank Lampard came out last week and he said that Anthony Gordon is worth 100 million. Obviously that's a bit of an overvaluation, but on this team, he looks it because he's the only danger man. He was the only danger man against Brentford. He was the only one creating chances up front. He scored a goal in that one. He scored again against Leeds on Tuesday. So he may as well be worth 100 million to this team because if they lose him, I'm just not sure where that creativity comes from. Liverpool really needed, obviously, you guys mentioned it, to get out of jail last night, obviously, 98th minute winner to escape with a win against Newcastle. Just glad as well that we managed to cash that exactly 3 goals prop we gave out on Tuesday's show, plus 333.
Oh, nice.
But as I said, thank you. As I said, in terms of next breakdown, you do feel it's in the post with this Liverpool team. Outside of the Bournemouth result, Liverpool have only scored an average of 1.5 goals across the other 4 matches in the Premier League. That is really low for this team, especially when you consider they average 2.63 goals per game over the first half of last season. That was number 1 in the league. So 1.5, they won't stay at that. And when you consider also that Liverpool averaged the highest number of shots already this season, out of any team, Manchester City, whoever, Liverpool averaged the highest number of shots. They're second highest in overall XG as well. Plus, obviously, Darwin Núñez being available for this game as well. I just think it's a matter of time until Liverpool finally do hit gear, whether it's this game or not. So I got to go with Liverpool in this one. Minus 1.5 of plus money is fine. Personally, I like the minus 1.25 at minus 133 a little bit more, as it gives you that protection, in case Liverpool only win by a single goal. But no matter how I slice this one, I cannot be putting my money on Everton, big derby or no. So Liverpool for me in this one.
All right, Kevin Dolan, WagerTalk.com. I don't know. It sounded to me like you were making some very good points on Liverpool scoring goals, which made me feel better about my over there. More so than the contrasting opinion of Nick Borrman and the under. But we'll see, because we'll talk about it on Tuesday. Regardless of how the results go, we will discuss it on Tuesday's show. But it is Thursday's show, and let's get to the next game. We're going to look at Chelsea and West Ham in this The odds on this one, Chelsea minus 233 at home. The draws plus 375 and West Ham plus 500. Listen, when I look at Chelsea, and I'm going to make this quick before I throw it right back to you, Kev, they're playing much like I expected them to play. And you wouldn't think a team with that's 2-1-2 on the season is what I expect. But I thought Stamford Bridge, they play extremely tough. Last year, I think they only lost 3 games, 1 to Man City, 1 to Arsenal, and then 1 to Brentford. I believe it was 4-1 in a game that was 3 days prior to their Champions League semifinal game against Real Madrid. So again, that Champions League angle. But I'm going to throw that angle out here. They're at Stamford Bridge. They play extremely well at home. They play Tuchel ball on the road. They're going to be a much better team if they can get a center forward in. They really need a center forward on this team. But they're playing West Ham. And West Ham got a result against the Spurs, but I still don't think they are there. I don't mind laying the goal here. I don't want to lay more than a goal because I eventually Chelsea get the win in this game. And whether they win by 1 or 2 or more, I still feel they win. So I'm going to lay the 1 here, even though they have a Champions League game next week at Dinamo Zagreb. I'm going to take them here. They need a win, and they need 1 at home. So I'll lay the goal here, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Kev.
You're a brave man, Carmine. You are a brave man, because I just can't be having Chelsea at these kind of prices. Thomas Tuchel thinks blowing an enormous pile of cash is the answer to all of his problems, but it's clearly not. 80 million euros yesterday for Wesley Fofana. He actually spent that much over the summer. He broke Chelsea's summer spending transfer record this season. He spent almost 300 million euro, 287 to be exact. And, as you said, the record, what does he have to show for it? 2 wins all season. 1 he got very lucky in. Very lucky to hang on against Leicester. And he hasn't covered this line either. Both of those wins were by exactly 1 goal. And, you would look at his schedule. It hasn't exactly been a murderer's row of teams he's faced either. So, to me, it's clear something's not right in the dressing room. Something's gone badly wrong with this Chelsea side. It looks as though he's just lost the team. Timo Werner's only been gone out the door 5 minutes and he's already bagged the first half hat-trick. So, Lukaku, what was going on there? So Chelsea are obviously a talented team, but trusting my money with this German manager who looks like he's about to have a mental breakdown every 5 minutes on the side of the pitch, or taking my money, putting it on a solid, dependable workhorse like my main man David Moyes, absolutely no contest for me. So it's got to be West Ham for me in this one, especially bump it up to that plus 1.25 line at minus 133. I really like that. I'd be very surprised if Chelsea show up here and do a number on West Ham in a London derby. So, West Ham plus 1 at plus money is fine. If you have the option to boost it up to plus 1.25, I really like that.
All right, Kevin Dolan. Pavlos, I'm going to go to you. He talks about David Moyes, and I thought he would have a good game plan in place last week when I took them against Aston Villa, and they did. That was their only win. But again, they're just not scoring, and if they fall behind here, I just don't see them coming back. Thoughts?
Yeah, what worries me is the fact that both these teams are playing midweek matches in the Champions League and the Europa Conference League. So we're not really sure which lineups we're going to see here. Of course, the transfer deadline is still live for a couple of more hours, so we might see some changes there, especially for Chelsea. I hear they're looking to add Aubameyang. As for West Ham, actually, I have a nice stat from last season. Chelsea, they went 8-2 to the both teams to score no in their weekend matches prior to a Champions League match. So that's an interesting stat because some of them were losses, most of them were wins, but they were slim wins. They just scored the goal, secured the win. They didn't really look for a second goal. They just wanted their 3 points. So they kept various clean sheets. On some occasions, they lost by 1-0 again. While West Ham, they were a bit more complicated in the same sense that they were 6-6 to the both teams to score prior to Europa League matches last season. Of course, they started the season, I think, with the first 4 or 5 matches weekend matches prior to a Europa League match had both teams score no, which tells me that West Ham again, they lost some of those, they won some of those. Teams that play in Europe, they tend to perform really weirdly over the weekend. And now this season, West Ham started the season with a couple of qualifiers for the Europa Conference League, and in their weekend matches prior to that, they had both teams to score no in both matches against Nottingham and Brighton. So with both teams looking to safeguard their defense, especially Chelsea, who as Kevin very well said, he's on the verge of having a stroke every 5 minutes. I think at some point he's going to try to shape up the defense, and it's probably going to be at the expense of his offense. Now, as this match goes, again, it's a London derby. Each of the last 4 matches between the two sides in this venue had both teams to score no. So all these things point me towards taking the both teams to score no at -110. I think Chelsea, if they score the first goal, one of those situations, they're going to park the bus. West Ham, for sure, they're going to park the bus anyway. Even a goalless draw, I think it would be not a catastrophic result for them. So I see very few goals here. I don't think any team is going to be blown out. I wouldn't be surprised by a goalless draw. I like both teams to score no, -110 here.
All right, Pavlos, Laguretos, Sports Memo. Nick, I'm going to give you the final thought on this one. You know what I mean? Like the last 24 hours, 48 hours, talking to some soccer traders that I know, everyone seems to believe that taking a goal with West Ham, kind of like what Kev did, is the way to go. But it's not the traders saying it, it's what they're hearing. And it's one of those things where I always talk about if the public is on one side, you start to worry a little bit. Where are we going with this one?
Yeah, that's a good point. If that's true, that's is always worrisome. But I guess the theme of the day is I'm disagreeing with Carm, which maybe isn't a good thing because Carm's smarter than me. I just happen to be better looking, so I got that going for me.
You are definitely better looking, my friend. You are definitely better looking.
It's just weird. I find myself agreeing with Kevin a lot today. So I don't know what's going on in the drinking water out there. But West Ham, we talked about this game, or the West Ham Tottenham game, on the Tuesday show, and I was on West Ham plus a half a goal, just for the reason that they were a solid team last year. They didn't lose much. They spent a shit ton of money, $200 million in the offseason to better themselves, and I think it was just a matter of time for them to kind of click. Maybe they just needed time on the field with one another. They don't have everybody kind of figured out yet, I guess, or in their roles specifically. But after that win 2 games ago, I believe it was drawing a blank now. I think it was over Aston Villa. And then I'm like, maybe that was the jumping board they needed. And, of course, they had a great result against Tottenham with the draw. They arguably could have won that game. They had definitely better shot numbers, expected goal numbers. So maybe a little unlucky not to get more there. But they looked good. And I think, that kind of is momentum that they're gaining versus Chelsea. We've all talked about how they just haven't been looking as good. And at the end of the day, Carm, you kind of alluded to the fact that this thing is sitting on one. It just feels like it's likely. If Chelsea wins, it's likely a push. I just don't see them blowing West Ham out. So, but if you believe that Chelsea's going to win, it's safe to go that way because you don't have the risk of necessarily losing by laying multiple goals. But the same on the West Ham side. I like the Hammers. I don't see them losing by multiple. The historical here between these teams is not for blowout wins by Chelsea by any means. The Blues have covered this number just once in the last 6 head-to-heads and only twice in the last 16. So they just do not blow out the Hammers very often, and I think the Hammers are heading in the right direction here. And their game next week would be Thursday, an extra day of rest over Chelsea. So maybe that helps non-rotate their side a little less. So I like the Hammers +1. I think if you're going to take a side, that's the way to go.
All right, Nick, I fully agree with you as far as you being better looking than me. I'm the 4th best looking guy on this show. And that's only because you guys out there cannot see our producer, Dan, who is a fine looking gentleman as well, too. So, or else I'd be 5th in that. I have a face made for radio. I'm fine with that. But with that said, guys, let's get on to the final game on today's show. Man United and Arsenal. This is the featured match on Sunday. The numbers for this one, we've got plus money right across the board. Man United +145. The draw is +250. Arsenal +162. I'm sure I'm going to disagree, or these guys are going to disagree with me, but this is the featured game around 6. Listen, Arsenal off to a perfect 5-0 start. They get there again after conceding late to Aston Villa. They find one, win that game 3-2. But United have looked good. Win over Liverpool, a win at Southampton where they tend to struggle. A couple wins. They played today against Leicester City, so we don't know what they've done at the airing of this show prior to this game. But, you look at Arsenal, and at some point, this team is going to lose. I don't like getting in front of streaks. I talk about it on Puck Time with Andrew McInnes. I don't like getting in front of teams on big winning streaks, and they won 5 in a row. But I look at it, and they've played Crystal Palace, Leicester City, Bournemouth, Fulham, Aston Villa. I get it. You can only beat the teams they put in front of you. But these are 5 teams that with a combined 5 wins through 5 rounds of the EPL season, 25 games, 5 wins. This is an acid test for Arsenal on the road at Old Trafford. And we should see Anthony in the lineup. He did not register. They didn't get him registered in time to play the Leicester City game, but he will be available. And it's the Eric Ten Hag era at United. Let's see if he sticks Ronaldo on the bench again, which I'm sure he will. If that's Harry Kane on the bench again, I'm sure he will do that as well too. He is putting his mark on this team. They're going to start to win some games. I picked them for top 4. I'm still sticking by that one, and I'm going to take Man United here. Give me the plus 145 on United. Pavlos, over to you.
Yeah, I would really like to see what United do against Leicester tonight. But I was, looking through the stats, like card stats, corner kicks, and the corner kicks really stuck to me, or just call it whatever you will. United, they had 3 corner kicks against Southampton, and Southampton had 5, so they had the fewer corner kicks. Against Liverpool, they were out cornered like 8-6. Against Brentford, 8-2. Against Brighton, 6-2. So they had fewer corner kicks than their opponents in 3 or 4 matches so far. And when you look at Arsenal, they had more corner kicks than their opponents in their match against Villa. They had 10, Villa had 3. Against Fulham, they had 9, Fulham had 2. Against Bournemouth, against Leicester, and against Palace. So Arsenal, they play a lot down both flanks. They create a lot of corner kicks, and they've had the most corner kicks in all 5 matches of the season so far, while Manchester United in just 1 of their 4 matches. Last season, things were quite weird because when Arsenal hosted Manchester United, they had just 1 corner kick against 7 by United. But when United hosted in this venue, Arsenal had 8 corner kicks and United had 3. So I like Arsenal PK on the corners here, minus 120, which essentially means that if Arsenal have more corner kicks, we win. And this bet pushes if the number of corner kicks is equal for the 2 sides. So I think that's a very, very safe bet to make. Again, Arsenal might try, to keep Manchester United at bay. They surely don't want to lose. Maybe we'll see a draw here. I wouldn't be surprised by a draw, which dropped to plus 250 now. But I think corner kicks is the safest way, for me at least, to go and bet on this match, because it's really a double. It's really a coin flip for me at this point.
All right, Pavlos Laguretos of Sports Memo. Nick, I'm going to go to you on this one. We've disagreed thus far on the show through 2 games. Let's just if you're bowling 3 strikes in a row is a turkey. Let's throw the turkey out there. Do you disagree with me on Man United?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on everything today, Carm. And Pavlos, I don't have any opinion on what he was mentioning with the corners. I haven't looked at that market, but he's usually pretty good at those prop type of angle. So it's interesting to hear that Pavlos. I kind of want to look at that myself. But listen, Carm, if you feel strongly on this game, I would as a viewer, I would listen to Carm more than myself here, because I don't have a really strong opinion of this game. One reason I love doing this show is it makes me really dig into the games that we're covering, and honestly, I usually find a pretty good angle on a lot of the games that we get into, enough where I'm like, you know what, this is a client play. This is good. But I just haven't really gotten there in this game. I mean, the eye test certainly suggests, quickly looking at Arsenal. And, of course, that's a worry, as you mentioned, Carm, with the schedule they've had. It's been rather weak. But, they've done a good job with it. Last year's Arsenal, let's go back several years, right? The Arsenal we know and we make fun of all the time is the Arsenal that can't win the games they're supposed to be winning. So kudos to them for turning that around, for finally being able to do that. The signings that they've done, Arteta finally having some time with this team, has certainly looked like it's at least done that. They're beating who they should be beating. But how are they going to do against these top 6 teams, top 7 teams? And that's obviously, this is the first test we're going to see here. But their numbers, you look across the board, they're fantastic. Second best expected goal differential, plus 1.62. They rank behind only Man City there. They rank first, second, or third in all shots for, both total and on goal, and defensively, shots allowed and on goal, with basically with City and Liverpool. So very good numbers everywhere. United, the only game that I think they've looked decent enough was that Liverpool game. Even against Southampton, yes, they won, but I was on Southampton. I thought Southampton deserved a result in that game, and outplayed them. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day when you win the game. That's all that really matters. But the only game they really impressed me so far is Liverpool. But hey, that was a big game, a big team. They got up for it, and maybe they'll do the same here against the Gunners. Ten Hag has been certainly tinkering with the lineups. We know Ronaldo hasn't been starting. So we'll see how he lines these guys up for this game, and maybe that momentum is enough to carry him in here. So I'm going to be a viewer here. I got to be honest on this match, but as a draw, no bet. If I'm going to put any money on here, I would just go with the Arsenal side, just because confidence is certainly beaming on this side. Everybody's having a great time winning. It's everybody's happy when you win, and I'm just not sure. I'll call it a Jekyll and Hyde situation with United. I'm just not sure which way United might come out here. So I'm nervous, but I would lean towards Arsenal on the pick 'em price here.
All right, Nick Borrman of WagerTalk.com. And Nick, listen, I get it. I talked about, the fact that it's extremely tough to get in front of a team who has won 5 straight out of the gate. And again, you can only beat who they put in front of you. It's not their fault. That's the schedule they were given, but they've looked good in each game. And it speaks to the mentality of the team, before I throw it to Kev, where in years past with Arsenal, they have a lead, they give up a goal late, and they just fold. And they haven't done that. And maybe that's, having the new players they brought in, Gabriel Jesus, of course, as well, too. He has changed the mindset of this team. And even when they fall behind, they come back like they did against Fulham. Even when they one is pulled back late, and like the last game against Aston Villa, where it's 1-1 late, they find a way to win it. So the mentality of the team seems to be changing. And with that said, let's go to Kevin for his thoughts.
Yeah, if you had to ask me, Carmine, probably as recently as early this year, but potentially trusting Arsenal in a big game, I probably would have laughed in your face. Absolutely no way. Arsenal, should we all know it? Arsenal famous over the last 10 years, probably even since the, mid 2000s Invincible era. We know how they do. They look good. You start to trust them, and just when you're fully involved, bust out the maple syrup because it's pancake time. They'll just go completely flat. So obviously, I would agree with Nick in terms of, I would lean Arsenal. It's not going to make my card, though, because you have to have that little bit of hesitation on them here, because it is such a big game. Obviously, after a decade of abuse of wasting your money on them, it's going to take some time to get that trust back. But, the only slight disagreement I'd have is, I actually don't think that's, their schedule, especially if you had looked at their schedule at the start of the year, you would go, that is pretty weak. But I think it's aged a little bit better. Patrick Vieira is doing a really good job over at Palace. Arsenal put 4 goals past Leicester. Marco Silva's doing a phenomenal job over at Fulham as well. They're really impressing. So I don't think their schedule's quite as bad, or it's at least aged a little bit better than what it looked like at the start. And that, Nick mentioned the data's backing them up, obviously, as even a legitimate title contender this season, perhaps, undefeated on the season, number 1 in the league in terms of overall defensive XGA this year as well. So I got to go, if I had to pick a side here, I got to go with Arsenal in this one. They'll have a day's extra rest over United coming into this game as well. And while United do have 2 wins on the bounce now heading into the night's game against Leicester, Nick mentioned it as well, somewhat fortunate to get that win against Southampton at the weekend. Are United, quote unquote, back? We just don't know. Is this the Ten Hag era? I don't know. I need to see more from United too. So give me the more dependable team so far in the league. for this game, Arsenal, especially at the Peckham line on Sunday. So, yeah, Arsenal for me.
All right, Nick and Kevin Dolan on Arsenal. So we'll see how that one goes. And like I said, Arteta's doing a fantastic job. I've always been a fan of this Arsenal team. They kind of broke our hearts. We had them finish top 4 last year. I think Nick and I did, and they squandered that one late in the season. And I know that a few times during the year I would have plays on them, and I have friends saying, not Arsenal again. Come on, Carmine, not Arsenal again. So they break your hearts. They've got a tough schedule coming up, so we'll see how they do. Obviously, this United game, they've got 3 of their next 5 games are against United on the weekend. Then they've also got Tottenham and Liverpool. So we'll see. We'll see how this team does, the fiber of whether they have a backbone or not. We'll find out soon in the next 30 days or so. Speaking of 30 days, guys, promo for the show, Kick 30. You can get 30 days of soccer for only $139. That's every single play, guys, props, parlays, sides, totals, for the next 30 days for $139 using Kick 30, and that's less than $5 a day. And trust me, there is a ton of action coming up with Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League starting next week, and every week following that as they try and cram in as many games as they can prior to the shutdown at the beginning of November for the World Cup. So grab that deal on your Cappers pages, Kick 30, to get 30 days of soccer for $139. All right, guys, we are into our best bet segment. We're going to look at some games across the leagues in Europe and in North America, and we're going to kick it off with Nick Borrman.
For my best bet, I'm going to stick with the MLS. Unfortunately, Tuesday's best bet ended up being a loser last night, Miami, plus 3/4 of a goal, but only half loss there, so not terrible. This time, Carm, if I haven't pissed you off yet, this one will certainly piss you off, and that's because I'm going to fade your Toronto FC boys and take Montreal plus 1/4 of a goal. Montreal coming off a 1-0 loss versus the Red Bulls last night, snapped an 8-game unbeaten run with 6 wins and 2 draws. That match last night was the battle of the 2 best defensive teams in the league in terms of pure volume. They allow the lowest shots per game. Montreal is number 1, allowing just 9.3 shots per game. So the 1-0 result was fitting for Montreal coming off that loss. Looking at expected goals, Montreal allowed just 1.11 expected, which is tied for Philly for the second fewest in the league, behind only LAFC. And Montreal owned the 4th best expected goal differential. Now, of course, I'm not going to look at the season-long numbers for Toronto. We know they've made changes. We know they are now Little Italy, as Carm likes to refer them to, with all the Italian signings they've had. And they've certainly done much better as of late. Over that last 8 games, they also only have 1 loss with 3 wins and 4 draws. Excuse me. But I'm a little worried here with Montreal's defense and how good they've been, and I don't see Toronto, being able to score a lot here, because the one thing that hasn't really changed for Toronto is their defense hasn't gotten a lot better. They've allowed 2 goals in 3 of the last 4 games, and they allowed still 10 goals in their last 6. So it's kind of simple. I just think Montreal's got the better defense. I'm going to take the head start. It's only 1/4 of a goal, so maybe it's a draw and it's only a half win, but I think Montreal is the way to play it.
All right, Nick Borrman of WagerTalk.com. Nick, listen, I cannot fault you. I was at the game last night. I'm a season ticket holder for TFC. I'm watching that game. They come back, take the 2-1 lead, and all I could think of, I'm looking to the sidelines for Bob Bradley to substitute somebody in, take a forward out, clog up the midfield. Let's close out the last 3-4 minutes of the game. And no, he leaves Insigne out there. He leaves Bernadeschi out there. He leaves Jesus Jimenez out there. And of course, they give up a goal late in the 89th minute to the Galaxy with Puig, who they just picked up from Barcelona, scoring the goal. And I'm just shaking my head. And it was a bummer on a night where I took your team, Nick, the Philadelphia Union, as a 5% play in MLS at WagerTalk. And man, I'm telling you right now, because they're tied with the LAFC for the Supporters Shield. If Philadelphia somehow finishes first overall, and you've got to play in Philly, not many teams are going to go to Philadelphia and beat that Union team. You guys are playing extremely well. You've got a very good team there. So I would be looking to lock up some playoff tickets, Nick, if I was you.
Smart.
With that said, Pavlos, Give us your show best bet.
Yeah, for my show best bet, I'm going to take you guys to Germany on Saturday in a match between Bochum and Werder Bremen. Now, Bochum, they're 4-1 to the over 2.5 goals so far in the season. They're coming off a rare under against Freiburg in a match that had a combined 43 shots between the two sides and 17 on target, but just one single goal. And Bochum, they have the worst XG differential with minus 2.05, the worst XGA with 3.09, and the highest total XG with 4.13. They allow the most shots this season with 21.8 per match, and they also allow the most shots on goal with 10.8 per game. They do create chances as well with 13.8 shots per game and 5 shots on target, but their defense is just really bad. And now Werder Bremen, they're 5-0 to the over 2.5 goals in all 5 matches so far in the season. They're 4-0 to the both teams to score and over 3.5 goals in their Bundesliga matches so far. They both scored and conceded 2+ goals in all 4 league matches so far in the season. They have the highest total with an average of 5 goals per match. And, I just see goals here. So the over 2.75 goals or 2.75 is at minus 117. And I think that's the only way to play this. I see goals from both sides here, a lot of goals. So take the over here, minus 117.
All right, Pavlos Laguretos with a best bet play. Pavlos, I am playing that one, so let's cash together. Kev,
Yep.
Give us a best bet.
Yeah, I'm going to head over to French League One, Carm, for my best bet. And I'm going to take Monaco, pick them against Nice on Sunday. Both teams struggling immensely right now over in the French League to kick off the season. Just one win apiece. But Monaco have been much better on the road this season. They beat Strasbourg. They drew a PSG. They have the 5th best overall road record this year as well. So I do think they show up on this one and take the W. So Monaco, for me, I pick them against Nice this weekend over in French League One, best bet.
All right, Kevin Dolan, WagerTalk.com. I'm going to go back to the EPL. I'm going to go to a Saturday game, and I'm going to look at the Newcastle Crystal Palace one. Listen, Newcastle were unfortunate. They should have gotten a result yesterday at Liverpool, and they have played extremely well. They're very stingy defensively, especially at home, with the exception of course, the Man City game that finished 3-3. But Man City are going to do that to a lot of teams this season. So you can sort of draw a line through that one. Otherwise, 4 of their 5 games have stayed under the total thus far. And that's where I'm going. Patrick Vieira probably unhappy with that late goal that took a win away from them and ended up in a draw. I wasn't happy about it as I had Crystal Palace. But under 2.5 here is my play in this one. I don't think we see a lot of goals. I think Newcastle eventually grind out a win, one of those 1-0 type games. So I'm going to take under 2.5 in this game as your show best bet. Guys, we're going to be back next week, Tuesdays and Thursdays with Champions League now on. On Tuesday, we're going to cover Champions League. I will, because the guys disagreed with me pretty much on every single play I had today, I'll have a completely new panel next week for Tuesday's show. But with that said, we're going to do Champions League on Tuesday, cover a couple of games and a Europa League game. And then Thursday, we'll look at the weekend EPL fixtures again. So please tune in. We're going to do a recap of all our leans at the end of this show. But we'll be back next Tuesday, 10 a.m. for myself, Nick Borrman, Kevin Dolan, and Pavlos Laguretos. This is Stoppage Time. Thanks for watching.
Isn't it refreshing when free really means free? Whether you're a WagerTalk customer, a Sports Memo customer, a fan of our videos, or even if you're not a customer at all, everyone can get this week's edition of Gold Sheet for free. Enjoy write-ups and stat logs on every college football game this week to see the new and improved Gold Sheet layout for this season. To download, log into Gold Sheet's website using username free@goldsheet.com and the password free. No coupon, phone number, or email address is required. It's that simple. Come see why Gold Sheet has been this country's premier football betting newsletter for over 6 decades.